Jake Morrison stood at the window of the space station and looked out at the stars. He had been in space for 3 years now, working for the Earth Defense Fleet. His job was simple most days. Check the systems, file reports, and make sure everything ran smoothly on the station called Artemis 7. But today was different. Today, humanity was meeting aliens for the first time. The ship appeared near Jupiter 2 weeks ago. It was unlike anything humans had ever built, sleek and silver. It moved through space like water flowing downstream. The aliens inside sent messages in every Earth language. They said they came in peace. They wanted to talk, to trade, to learn about humans. The world went crazy with the news. Now their ambassador was coming to Artemis 7 and Jake was assigned to be her guide. He did not know why they picked him. Maybe because he stayed calm under pressure. Maybe because he scored high on the cultural sensitivity tests. Or maybe they just needed someone and he was available. Either way, he was about to meet an alien. The docking bay doors opened with a hiss. Jake straightened his uniform and waited. Commander Lisa Hayes stood beside him, along with a dozen other officers and scientists. Everyone looked nervous. Jake felt his heart beating fast in his chest. She walked through the door and every person in the room went silent. The Valari ambassador was tall, much taller than any human Jake had ever seen. She had to be at least 7 feet. Her body was thin and elegant like a dancer, but it was her skin that made Jake stare. It shimmered, actually shimmered, like oil on water, shifting between silver and pale blue as she moved. Her eyes were huge and violet, the color of deep space. She wore simple white robes that seemed to flow around her even when she stood still. "Greetings," she said, and her voice sounded like music. "I am Ambassador Lyria of the Valari. Thank you for welcoming me to your station." Commander Hayes stepped forward. "Welcome, Ambassador. We are honored to host you. This is Lieutenant Jake Morrison. He will be your liaison during your stay here." Lyria turned those violet eyes on Jake and he forgot how to breathe for a second. She smiled and it lit up her whole face. "Jake Morrison, I am pleased to meet you." She walked toward him and before Jake could react, she placed her hand on his shoulder. Her touch was cool, gentle. "I look forward to learning from you." Jake's brain finally started working again. "The pleasure is mine, Ambassador. Please call me Lyria. We will be spending much time together. Formality seems unnecessary." The first week was a blur. Jake showed Lyria around the station, explaining how everything worked. She asked a million questions about everything. How did the artificial gravity work? What did humans eat? Why did they sleep for so many hours? How did they communicate across long distances? She wanted to know everything, and her curiosity was endless. But there was something Jake noticed right away. Lyria had no sense of personal space. None at all. When they talked, she stood close. Very close. Close enough that Jake could see the tiny patterns in her shimmering skin. When she wanted his attention, she touched his arm. When she was excited about something, she grabbed his hand. When they sat together reviewing documents, her knee pressed against his. At first, Jake thought she was flirting. But as the days went by, he realized she acted this way with everyone. The scientists, the other officers, even Commander Hayes. The Valari were just naturally touchy. It was how they communicated. That did not make it easier for Jake. Every time Lyria touched him, his heart started racing. Every time she stood close, his brain went fuzzy. He tried to stay professional, but it was hard. She was beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with being human or alien. When she smiled at him, something flipped in his chest. When she laughed at his jokes, he felt 10 feet tall. One afternoon, they were in the observation deck. Earth hung in the black sky below them, blue and white and perfect. Lyria stared at it for a long time without speaking. "It is beautiful," she finally said. "Your homeworld, so full of water and life." "What is your homeworld like?" Jake asked. "Different. Our star is older than yours. Cooler. Our skies are more red than blue. But it is beautiful too in its own way." She turned to him. "Jake Morrison, may I ask you something personal?" "Sure. Why do humans stand so far apart when they talk? Why do you avoid touching each other?" Jake thought about it. "We do touch, just not with strangers. Personal space is important to us. It is about respect. But how do you know what another person feels without touching them? How do you share comfort or happiness? We use words. We look at faces. We can tell from body language." Lyria tilted her head to one side, a gesture Jake now knew meant she was confused. "That seems lonely. To be so close to others but never truly connect." "Maybe," Jake admitted. But it is what we know, what we are comfortable with. I see. She was quiet for a moment. I hope I have not made you uncomfortable. Commander Hayes explained that I should ask before touching, but I forget sometimes. It is not natural for me to keep distance. You have not made me uncomfortable, Jake said, and it was true. Uncomfortable was not the right word. Overwhelmed, maybe. Confused about his own feelings, definitely, but not uncomfortable. Over the next few weeks, more Valari arrived at the station. Other humans were assigned to work with them. Jake saw his colleagues struggling with the same things he dealt with. The constant touching, the close conversations, the complete lack of boundaries. Some humans handled it better than others. But Jake noticed something else. None of the other Valari seemed to connect with their human partners the way Lyria connected with him. She sought him out even when other liaisons were available. She asked for his opinion on everything. She laughed at his stories and seemed genuinely interested in his life. Commander Hayes noticed too. She pulled Jake aside one day after a briefing. "Morrison, you look like you're about to pass out every time the ambassador comes near you. Are you okay? Do we need to assign someone else?" "No," Jake said quickly. "Too quickly. I can handle it. I am just adjusting." Hayes studied his face. The Valari read body language differently than we do, but they are not stupid. If you are uncomfortable, you need to tell her. "I am not uncomfortable," Jake said. "Then what is it?" Jake did not have an answer for that. Or maybe he did, but he was not ready to say it out loud. He was starting to have feelings for Lyria. Real feelings. The kind that made his chest tight and his thoughts scattered. The kind that made him look forward to seeing her every morning and feel disappointed when their workday ended. It was crazy. She was an alien. A completely different species from a planet he could not even pronounce. But when she smiled at him, none of that seemed to matter. Hayes sighed. "Just be careful, Morrison. This is all new territory. For everyone." That night, Jake lay in his bunk and stared at the ceiling. He thought about Lyria's violet eyes and the way her skin shimmered in the light. He thought about her laugh and her endless questions and the way she said his full name, like it was two separate words. Jake Morrison. He was in trouble. Deep trouble, and he had no idea what to do about it. The next morning, everything changed. Jake and Lyria were scheduled to review trade agreements in a small conference room. It was tedious work, reading through pages of legal language about tariffs and shipping routes and commercial regulations. But Lyria approached it with the same curiosity she brought to everything else. They had been working for 3 hours when Lyria set down her tablet and rubbed her eyes. "This is exhausting," she said. "Your language has too many words that mean almost the same thing, but not quite." Jake laughed. "Wait until you get to the part about agricultural imports. That is where it gets really fun." Lyria smiled at him, and Jake felt that familiar flip in his chest. Then her smile faded. She shifted in her chair, trying to get comfortable. The furniture on the station was built for humans, and she was too tall for it. Her knees pressed awkwardly against the table. "These chairs are not made for my body," she said. "After so many hours, it is quite uncomfortable." "We can take a break," Jake offered. "Walk around, stretch your legs." "No, we should finish this section today. The council is waiting for our report." She looked around the small room, then looked at Jake. Her expression was uncertain, almost shy. "May I ask you something? It might seem strange. You can ask me anything. Could I sit on your lap instead? In my culture, it is normal when space is limited. I would be more comfortable and we could continue working." Jake's heart stopped. Actually stopped. For one long, impossible moment, there was no beat, no breath, no thought, just complete and total shutdown. Then his heart slammed back into action, pounding so hard he was sure Lyria could hear it across the table. His brain raced. Lyria wanted to sit on his lap. The 7-foot-tall alien ambassador wanted to sit on his lap like it was the most normal thing in the universe. Like asking to borrow a pen or share a table. Words would not come. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. His face felt hot. Lyria's expression changed to concern. "Have I offended you? I did not mean to violate your customs. Please forgive me." "No," Jake managed. His voice sounded strange. "You did not offend me. It is just, humans do not usually do that. Not unless they are," he trailed off. "Unless they are what? In a romantic relationship. Or with children, but not with colleagues or friends." Lyria stared at him. "Romantic? It is just sitting." The incident got reported. Protocol demanded it. Every interaction between humans and Valari that went wrong had to be documented. Within 2 hours, Jake found himself sitting in Commander Hayes's office, trying to explain what happened while his face burned hot. Hayes leaned back in her chair and pressed her fingers together. She was trying not to smile. Jake could tell. So let me make sure I understand this correctly. Ambassador Lyria asked to sit on your lap. You nearly had a heart attack. And now, we have an interstellar diplomatic problem because neither of you understood what the other meant. That covers it, ma'am. Morrison, you are not the first. We have had 4 similar incidents this month. The Valari do not understand why this is such a big deal. To them, it is like asking to borrow a chair or share a table. Then we need better training, Jake said. For both species. We need to understand each other better. Already working on it. But here is what you need to do right now. You need to talk to Lyria and clear the air. She thinks she did something terrible. She has been asking about you constantly. Wants to know if you're angry with her. Jake's heart did that stuttering thing again. She has been asking about me? Yes. Every hour. She is worried she damaged the diplomatic relationship. Hayes fixed him with a stern look. And Morrison, if you have personal feelings that are getting in the way of your job, you need to tell me now. Did he have personal feelings for Lyria? Jake had been avoiding that question for weeks now. She was an alien, a completely different species from a different world. It was impossible and probably against regulations. But when she looked at him with those violet eyes, when she said his name in that musical voice, when she stood close enough that he could feel the cool air around her skin, yes, he had feelings, strong ones. I can handle my job, ma'am. That is not what I asked. Jake was quiet for a moment. I will talk to her. I will fix this. He found Lyria in the botanical gardens. It was a section of the station where earth plants grew under artificial lights, trees and flowers from home, maintained by the science team. Lyria stood in front of a cherry blossom tree, watching the pink petals fall around her. She looked sad. Lyria, Jake called softly. She turned fast. Relief flooded her face. Jake Morrison, I thought you would not speak to me again. I have been studying human customs about intimacy and personal space. I understand now how wrong my request was. How inappropriate. It was not inappropriate, Jake said, walking closer. Just unexpected. Our cultures are different, we are both still learning. But I made you uncomfortable, I saw your face, your heart rate increased, you looked distressed. Jake took a deep breath. This was it. Time to be honest. My heart rate increased, yes, but not from distress. Lyria, in human culture, when someone you care about asks to be that close, it means something. It triggers responses that are hard to control. Lyria moved closer to him. Someone you care about? You care about me? Yes, more than I probably should for a diplomatic liaison. She studied his face with those huge violet eyes. Jake felt like she could see right through him. This is why you always seem nervous around me? This is why your heart beats fast when I touch you? Yes, I see. She was quiet for a long time. In my culture, we do not separate friendship from romance the way you do. We simply connect with others on different levels. Some connections are light and casual. Some are deep and important. But we do not categorize them the way humans do. She paused. But I think I understand now. You have formed a deep connection with me, and it frightens you. It does not frighten me, Jake said. It just makes things complicated. Why must it be complicated? Why can you not simply feel what you feel? Because humans overthink everything. Because there are rules and protocols and cultural expectations. Because you are an alien and I am human and nobody knows how this is supposed to work. To his surprise, Lyria laughed. It sounded like bells ringing. I find that very human, to make something simple into something complex. Jake laughed too. The tension between them started to fade. We are good at that. Jake Morrison, I must tell you something. I have also formed a connection with you, a deep one. When I am with you, I feel comfortable, safe, curious, happy. I did not expect to feel this way about a human, but I do. Jake's heart was racing again, but this time he did not try to hide it. What do we do about it? We continue as we have been. We work together. We learn about each other. We see where this connection leads. She smiled. Is that acceptable in human culture? Yes, that is acceptable. The days that followed were different. Better. Jake and Lyria were more honest with each other now. They talked about the differences between their cultures without awkwardness. Lyria learned to ask before touching, even though it felt unnatural to her. Jake learned to be more open with his feelings, to say things out loud instead of keeping them inside. They spent their evenings together after work. Lyria wanted to understand everything about humanity. Art, music, literature, history, emotion. She had 1,000 questions, and Jake did his best to answer them all. One evening they sat in the observation deck, their usual spot. The stars stretched out before them, endless and bright. Jake had been reading poetry to Lyria, trying to explain the concept. She found it fascinating that humans used specific words in specific orders to create feeling. This is beautiful, Lyria said after he finished a poem about longing and distance. Your species has such ability to create beauty, even from sadness, especially from sadness. What about your people? Do the Valari make poetry? We create what you might call emotion symphonies. They are not made of words, but of touch. We share feelings directly, skin to skin. It is the highest form of art in our culture. That sounds amazing, Jake said quietly. Lyria looked at him for a long moment. Would you like to experience it? I could share something small with you, if you are willing. Jake's heart started its familiar racing pattern, but he did not hesitate. Yes, I would like that very much. Lyria held out her hand, palm up. Her skin glowed faintly in the starlight. May I? Jake placed his hand in hers. Her skin was cool and impossibly smooth. She closed her eyes, and suddenly Jake felt something, a wave of emotion that was not his own. Peace washed over him. Then curiosity, bright and eager. Then joy, warm and gentle. And underneath it all, something that felt like caring, like affection. It lasted only a few seconds, but when Lyria released his hand, Jake felt like he had experienced something profound, like he had seen into her soul. That was you? He asked. His voice came out rough. What you were feeling? Yes, that is what you make me feel, Jake Morrison. They sat in silence for a while, just being together. Jake thought about how strange his life had become. 6 months ago, he had been checking systems and filing reports, living a quiet, predictable life in space. Now he was holding hands with an alien ambassador and feeling her emotions through touch. It was crazy, but it was also the best thing that had ever happened to him. The weeks passed quickly. Jake and Lyria grew closer. They learned each other's habits and preferences. Lyria discovered that Jake liked coffee in the morning, but tea at night. Jake learned that Lyria hummed when she was thinking hard about something. They developed their own language of small gestures and shared looks. The rest of the station noticed. Some people thought it was wonderful, a symbol of human and Valari cooperation. Others worried about complications, about what it meant, about whether it was appropriate. Commander Hayes called Jake in again. The Earth Council wants to know if this thing between you and the ambassador is going to cause problems. It is not a thing, Jake said, then stopped. Actually, it is. But it is not a problem. If anything, Lyria and I understand each other better than any other human Valari pair on this station. It helps the diplomatic process. That is what I told them. Hayes smiled slightly. Just be professional in public, Morrison, and be careful. We are writing the rules as we go. Nobody knows how this is supposed to work. I know, ma'am. That night Jake could not sleep again, but this time it was not from worry or confusion. It was from excitement, from the strange, wonderful feeling of being connected to someone so different from him. He thought about Lyria's violet eyes and her musical laugh. He thought about the way she tilted her head when she was confused and the way she said his full name like it was a song. He was falling in love with her, actually in love. And somehow that felt right. The next morning, Jake met Lyria for breakfast in the station cafeteria. She was already there trying to figure out how to use the coffee machine. Jake showed her how to work it, and she beamed at him when she successfully made a cup. "I have been practicing human customs," she said proudly. "I can now make coffee, tie shoelaces, and use sarcasm. Though I am not very good at the sarcasm yet." Jake laughed. "You are doing great, better than any of us are doing with Valari customs." They sat together, eating and talking. Lyria told him about a message she received from her home world. Her people were excited about the alliance with humans. They wanted to learn everything. Jake told her about a conversation he had with his sister back on Earth. His family wanted to know all about the alien he was working with. "I told them you were brilliant and curious and kind," Jake said. "I did not tell them the rest." "The rest?" "That I have feelings for you." The weeks after the photo leaked were difficult. Jake and Lyria found themselves at the center of a global debate. News programs discussed them constantly. Was it appropriate for a human and an alien to be in a relationship? What did it mean for the diplomatic mission? Were they setting a good example or a dangerous precedent? Jake's family called. His mother was worried. His father was confused. His sister wanted to know everything. Jake tried to explain, but how could he make them understand? He barely understood it himself. All he knew was that Lyria made him happy, and that had to be enough. The Earth Council called a meeting. Jake and Lyria sat across from 5 officials who looked stern and concerned. The head of the council, a woman named Patricia Clark, spoke first. "Ambassador Lyria, Lieutenant Morrison, we need to address this situation. Your relationship has become a distraction from the important work we are doing here." "With respect, ma'am," Jake said, "our relationship has not interfered with our work. We have completed every assignment, met every deadline, and exceeded expectations in cultural exchange." "That may be true," another council member said, "but perception matters. Some people think this relationship is inappropriate. They question whether you can remain objective in your duties." Lyria spoke up, her voice calm but firm. "In my culture, we do not separate personal connections from professional responsibilities. We believe that caring for someone makes you more committed to their well-being and success, not less. My relationship with Jake Morrison has made me a better ambassador. Because I understand humans better. I care about them more." "Is this not a good thing?" Patricia Clark was quiet for a moment. Then she sighed. "You make a fair point, Ambassador. But we need to address the public concern. Would you be willing to give an interview to explain your relationship to the world?" Jake and Lyria looked at each other. Then they nodded. The interview was scheduled for the following week on a major news program. Jake was nervous the entire time leading up to it. What would they ask? How much should they reveal? What if they said the wrong thing and made everything worse? The night before the interview, Jake and Lyria sat in their apartment. Lyria was reading through possible questions the interviewer might ask. Jake was pacing back and forth, unable to sit still. "You are worried," Lyria observed. "Of course I am worried. Tomorrow we are going to tell the entire world about us, about our relationship. People are going to judge us, criticize us, maybe hate us." Lyria set down her notes and stood up. She walked over to Jake and took his hands. "Listen to me, Jake Morrison. We have done nothing wrong. We care for each other. That is not something to be ashamed of or to hide. If people cannot accept that, it is their limitation, not ours. I know. I just wish it was easier. Nothing worth having is easy. You taught me that, remember? When we first met and I did not understand human customs, you were patient with me. You helped me learn. Now we will help the world learn that love is possible between any two beings, regardless of where they come from." Jake pulled her close and held her. She was right. They had nothing to be ashamed of. Their relationship was real and good and worth fighting for. The interview took place in a studio in downtown Washington. The interviewer was a man named Daniel Price, known for being fair but direct. He greeted them warmly and made them comfortable before the cameras started rolling. When the recording began, Daniel got straight to the point. "Ambassador Lyria, Lieutenant Morrison, thank you for being here. Let me ask the question everyone wants answered. Are you two in a romantic relationship?" "Yes," Lyria said without hesitation. "We are. How did this happen? When did you realize you had feelings for each other? Jake answered this one. It happened gradually. At first I was just doing my job, helping Lyria adjust to the station and understand human customs. But as we spent time together, we became friends. Then something deeper. We tried to ignore it at first, but eventually we had to admit what we were feeling. And what were you feeling? Daniel asked. Love, Lyria said simply. In any language, in any culture, that is what it was. Love. But you are from different species. Different worlds. How does that work? It works the same way any relationship works, Jake explained. Through communication, compromise, patience, and respect. Yes, we have cultural differences. Yes, there are things we have to explain to each other, but those differences make us stronger, not weaker. We learn from each other every day. Daniel turned to Lyria. Ambassador, some people have said that your relationship with Lieutenant Morrison is inappropriate, that it compromises your role as a diplomat. What do you say to that? I say they do not understand what diplomacy truly is. Diplomacy is about building bridges between people, about finding common ground, about caring enough to understand someone different from you. My relationship with Jake has made me a better diplomat, because I now understand humans on a deeper level. I care about humanity more because I care about him. This makes me more committed to peace and cooperation, not less. Lieutenant Morrison, what about you? Has this relationship affected your ability to do your job? It has made me better at my job, Jake said firmly. I understand the Valari better now. I can anticipate problems and solve them more effectively. And I am more motivated than ever to make sure this alliance succeeds because I have personal stakes in it now. I want our peoples to build a lasting friendship because I love someone from that world. The interview continued for an hour. They talked about their first meeting, the cultural misunderstandings, the moment they realized their feelings were mutual. They talked about their hopes for the future and their fears about public reaction. They were honest and open, holding nothing back. When it aired 2 days later, the response was overwhelming. Millions of people watched. The comments and reactions were mixed as expected, but something had shifted. Many people who had been critical before now saw them differently. They saw two people who genuinely cared for each other, trying to navigate an impossible situation with grace and honesty. Support began to build. Other human Valari couples came forward, revealing their own relationships. Apparently Jake and Lyria were not alone. There were dozens of similar partnerships forming across the world. Humans and Valari who had connected on a deep level. A movement started, called Unity Through Connection. It promoted the idea that relationships between humans and Valari were not problems to be solved, but examples to be celebrated. They represented the best of what the alliance could be. Jake's family called again. This time they were supportive. His mother said she was proud of him for being brave. His father said he wanted to meet Lyria properly. His sister said she thought it was the most romantic thing she had ever heard, but not everyone was happy. There were protests outside the embassy. People who thought the relationship was wrong, unnatural, or dangerous. Some religious groups condemned it. Some political groups used it to argue against the alliance. One evening, as Jake and Lyria walked home from the embassy, they were confronted by a small group of protesters. The protesters shouted things at them, angry and mean. One man stepped in front of them, blocking their path. "This is wrong," he said. "You are betraying humanity." Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but before he could respond, Lyria stepped forward. She looked at the man with those calm violet eyes. "I understand you are afraid," she said gently. "Change is frightening. The unknown is frightening. But I promise you, I mean no harm to humanity. I love humanity. I love Jake Morrison, and through loving him I have come to love your whole species. Is that really so terrible?" The man stared at her, his anger faltering. "But you are not one of us." "No, I am not. But maybe that is the point. Maybe we do not have to be the same to care for each other. Maybe that is what makes it special." The man stood there for a moment longer, then stepped aside. He did not apologize, but he let them pass. As they walked away, Jake heard him say quietly, "Maybe you are right." "That was brave," Jake said when they were safely away. "I was terrified," Lyria admitted. "But I meant what I said. We cannot let fear control us, not theirs and not ours." The protests continued for a few more weeks, then gradually faded. People found other things to argue about. Life moved on. Jake and Lyria continued their work at the embassy, now openly together. They attended diplomatic functions hand in hand. They gave more interviews. They became the face of human-Valarii cooperation. 6 months after the photo leaked, the Earth Council made an announcement. They were officially recognizing human-Valarii relationships as valid and protected under international law. It was a huge victory, and Jake and Lyria knew they had played a part in making it happen. That night they celebrated in their apartment. Jake cooked dinner, or tried to. He burned the pasta and over-seasoned the sauce, but Lyria laughed and ate it anyway. They sat on their small balcony looking out at the city lights. "We did it," Jake said. "We actually did it. We did. But this is just the beginning, Jake Morrison. There is so much more work to do, so many more bridges to build. I know. But right now, in this moment, let us just enjoy what we have accomplished." Lyria leaned against him, and they sat in comfortable silence. Jake thought about how far they had come. From that first awkward meeting on the station to this moment, sitting together on Earth. 1 year after their relationship became public, Jake stood in the embassy conference room and looked at the map on the wall. Red pins marked every city where a Valarii embassy had been established. There were 30 now, spread across 6 continents. Blue pins marked cities where human ambassadors lived on the Valarii homeworld. 15 so far, with more planned each month. The alliance was working. Trade routes had been established. Technology was being shared. Cultural exchange programs flourished. Thousands of humans had visited the Valarii homeworld, and thousands of Valarii had come to Earth. It was everything they had hoped for and more. But the most surprising development was the number of relationships forming between the two species. What had started as a scandal with Jake and Lyria had become normal, accepted, even celebrated. There were hundreds of human Valarii couples now, living openly in cities around the world. Lyria entered the conference room carrying 2 cups of tea. She had learned to make it the way Jake liked, even though she still found the taste strange. She handed him a cup and stood beside him looking at the map. "We have come a long way," she said. "We have. Sometimes I still cannot believe this is real, that we are here, that this is our life. Do you have regrets?" Jake turned to look at her. "Not a single one. This past year has been the best of my life. Difficult sometimes, but the best." Lyria smiled and took his hand. This gesture was automatic now, as natural as breathing. "Mine too." A message alert chimed on the conference table. Lyria checked it, and her expression changed to one of excitement. "Jake, look at this. The Valarii Council wants us to visit the homeworld. They want to thank us in person for our work in building the alliance. We are going to your planet? Yes, if you want to. I know it is a long journey. 3 months in space travel. Of course I want to go. I have been wanting to see your home since the day we met." They left Earth 2 weeks later on a Valarii transport ship. The vessel was unlike anything Jake had experienced before. Where human ships were all sharp angles and metal surfaces, Valarii ships were smooth and organic, almost living. The walls glowed softly with bioluminescent light. The gravity was lighter, comfortable for the taller Valarii. The journey took longer than expected because of unexpected solar activity near the edge of the system. 4 months instead of 3, but Jake did not mind. The ship had observation decks where they could watch the stars. There was a garden section where Valarii plants grew in carefully controlled environments. There were libraries full of Valarii history and art. Jake spent his time learning everything he could about Lyria's homeworld. The language, the customs, the geography, the culture, Lyria taught him patiently, laughing at his pronunciation but encouraging his efforts. "You are doing very well," she said one evening as they practiced conversational phrases. Most humans give up after a few weeks. "The language is difficult for your vocal structure. I want to understand your world. Really understand it. Not just as a visitor, but as someone who belongs there. You will always belong with me, Jake Morrison, no matter where we are." When they finally arrived at the Valarii homeworld, Jake pressed against the observation window like a child. The planet was beautiful, smaller than Earth, with vast oceans that looked almost purple under the light of its red sun. The continents were silver and green, covered in plants that reflected light in shimmering waves. The landing was smooth. The city they arrived at was called Veralis Prime, the capital. It was unlike any human city Jake had ever seen. The buildings were tall and elegant, made of materials that seemed to shift color with the light. Gardens grew everywhere on rooftops and walls and elevated platforms. The air smelled like flowers and something else, something sweet and clean. Valari citizens lined the streets as Jake and Lyria walked through the city. They stared at Jake with open curiosity. He was the first human most of them had seen in person. Some children ran up to touch his hand, fascinated by his warm skin and different texture. Jake did not mind. He understood curiosity. He felt the same way about their world. The council building was a massive structure in the center of the city. Inside, the walls were covered in what looked like living murals, scenes from Valari history that moved and changed. Jake and Lyria were led to a large chamber where 7 council members waited. The head of the council was an ancient Valari named Eldest Saurian. His skin had faded to pale silver with age, and his eyes held centuries of wisdom. He stood when they entered and spread his hands in a traditional Valeri greeting. Ambassador Lyria, Lieutenant Jake Morrison, welcome home. We are honored by your presence. They spent hours with the council discussing the alliance and its progress. The council was pleased with everything that had been accomplished. They asked Jake dozens of questions about Earth and humanity. What did humans value most? What were their greatest fears? What did they hope for from the alliance? Jake answered as honestly as he could. He talked about human curiosity and creativity. He talked about their capacity for both great kindness and terrible cruelty. He talked about their dreams of exploring the stars and their fear of being alone in the universe. You are not alone, Eldest Saurian said. Neither of our species is alone anymore. That is the gift we give each other. After the formal meetings ended, Lyria showed Jake her home city. She took him to the market where she had shopped as a child. She showed him the school where she had learned to create emotion symphonies. She took him to her family home, a modest dwelling on the edge of the city with a view of the purple ocean. Her parents were there, and Jake met them nervously. But they welcomed him warmly. Her mother touched his face gently, sharing emotions of joy and acceptance. Her father asked him endless questions about Earth, fascinated by descriptions of snow and rain and changing seasons. You make my daughter happy, her mother said through Lyria's translation. That is all that matters to us. They stayed on the Valari homeworld for 3 months. Jake experienced things he never imagined. He swam in the purple oceans, the water warmer and thicker than Earth water. He tasted Valari food, most of which was mild and plant-based, perfectly suited to his palate. He attended an emotion symphony performance, where dozens of Valari shared complex feelings in waves that washed over the audience. But the most profound experience came one evening when Lyria took him to a sacred place called the Connection Garden. It was a grove of ancient trees with silver leaves that hummed in the wind. Valari came here to share deep bonds with those they loved. This is where my people come when they want to truly connect, Lyria explained. Not just share surface emotions, but merge completely for a brief moment. It is the deepest form of intimacy we know. Have you done this before? Once, many years ago, with someone I thought I cared for. But it was nothing compared to what I feel for you. What do? We sit here in this sacred place. We touch skin to skin, as much contact as possible, and we open ourselves completely. No barriers, no holding back. You will feel everything I am, and I will feel everything you are. Jake's heart raced, but he nodded. I am ready. They sat facing each other beneath the silver trees. Lyria took his hands, then moved closer until they were pressed together, foreheads touching, bodies aligned. She closed her eyes, and Jake did the same. The connection hit him like a wave. Suddenly he was not just Jake anymore. He was Lyria too. He felt her joy at being home, her nervousness about sharing this with him, her deep and overwhelming love. But he also felt her memories. Her childhood under the red sun. Her first time leaving her planet. Her loneliness before meeting him. Her fear that he would not truly accept her world, and she felt him. His wonder at everything he was experiencing, his gratitude for this chance to see her world, his insecurity about whether he was good enough for her, his absolute certainty that he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. The connection lasted only minutes, but when it ended, Jake felt changed. He understood Lyria now in a way he never had before, not just her thoughts or feelings, but her essence, who she truly was at her core. That was incredible, he whispered. Now you know me, Lyria said. All of me. The good and the bad, the light and the dark. Do you still love me? More than ever. Lyria, I did not think it was possible to love you more than I already did, but now I do. Is that normal? It is what the connection is meant to do, to deepen bonds beyond what words can express. They sat in the garden for hours just being together. Jake thought about the future. Eventually, they would have to return to Earth. There was work to be done, bridges to build, people to help. But right now, in this moment, they were home. Both of them. When they finally did return to Earth 5 months later, they came back different. Deeper, more connected. The media noticed immediately. Interviews remarked that they seemed to move as one person sometimes, finishing each other's thoughts and anticipating each other's needs. What happened on the Valari homeworld? One reporter asked. We experienced the connection, Lyria said simply. It is a Valari tradition, but I think humans would understand it as becoming one soul in two bodies. The phrase caught on. Other human Valari couples began traveling to the connection gardens on the homeworld, seeking that same deep bond. It became a pilgrimage of sorts, a way to cement relationships between species. 2 years after they first met, Jake and Lyria stood before a gathered crowd at the Earth-Valari Alliance headquarters. The building had been constructed specifically to house joint operations between the two species. Half-human architecture, half-Valari design blended seamlessly together. They were there to give a speech about the future of the Alliance. But Jake had other plans. He had been preparing for weeks, working with jewelers from both species to create something special. At the end of the speech, as Lyria finished talking about upcoming cultural programs, Jake stepped forward. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. The crowd went silent. Lyria, he said, his voice carrying across the room. 2 years ago, you asked if you could sit on my lap and my heart stopped. I was terrified because I knew even then that you were going to change my life. And you have. You have made me better, braver, more open to possibilities I never imagined. He opened the box. Inside was a ring, but not a traditional Earth ring. It was made of both Earth silver and Valari crystal, blended together. On Earth, rings symbolized marriage. In Valari culture, crystal bracelets symbolized bonding. This was both. I know our peoples have different traditions about commitment, but I want to make one that is ours. Will you bond with me? Will you marry me? Will you be my partner in this life and whatever comes after? Lyria's skin shimmered so brightly she almost seemed to glow. Tears fell from her violet eyes. Yes, 1,000 times yes. The crowd erupted in cheers as Jake slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. They embraced and cameras flashed, but neither of them cared. They were too busy being happy. The wedding or bonding ceremony, or whatever it should be called, happened 3 months later. It was a blend of human and Valari traditions. They exchanged vows in both languages. They shared an emotion connection in front of everyone, letting the whole world feel their love. It was unconventional and strange and absolutely perfect. Jake's family was there, now fully supportive. Lyria's parents traveled from the home world. Friends and colleagues from both species filled the venue. Commander Hayes officiated, having been ordained specifically for the occasion. We are here today to witness something that would have been impossible just 3 years ago, Hayes said. The bonding of two beings from different worlds. But as we have learned, love recognizes no boundaries, not of distance, not of species, not of difference. Love simply is. And these two have shown us all what is possible when we open our hearts to connection. After the ceremony, Jake and Lyria stood together greeting guests. So many people wanted to congratulate them, to touch them, to share in their happiness. Other human Valari couples came up to thank them for making it possible to live openly and proudly. You gave us hope, one human man said, standing with his Valari partner. You showed us it was okay to love someone different. As the celebration continued into the evening, Jake and Lyria found a quiet moment alone on a balcony overlooking the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. So this is it, Jake said. We are bonded, married, official. Does it feel different? Lyria asked. Everything and nothing feels different. I loved you yesterday. I love you today. I will love you tomorrow. The ceremony did not change that. It just made it official. In my culture, we believe that bonding ceremonies do change things. Not the love itself, but the commitment. We are saying to the universe that this is permanent, that we choose each other not just for now, but forever. Then I'm glad we did it, because forever with you sounds exactly right. They stood together watching the sunset. two beings from different worlds who had found each other across impossible distances. Their story had started with a simple question that stopped a heart, but it had become something so much bigger. A symbol of what the alliance could be, proof that connection was possible across any divide. In the years that followed, Jake and Lyria continued their work building bridges between species. They traveled between Earth and the Valari homeworld, helping others navigate the challenges of interspecies relationships. They wrote books about cultural understanding. They spoke at universities and conferences. They became ambassadors not just for their governments but for love itself. They faced challenges, of course. There were still people who did not approve, who thought their relationship was wrong or unnatural. There were logistical complications about where to live, how to blend their lives, what the future would hold. But they faced everything together with patience and honesty and love. 10 years after they first met, they sat together in their home on Earth, now older and grayer. Well, Jake was grayer. Lyria's hair did not gray, but her skin had developed new patterns, signs of age in Valari. They had adopted a child, a young Valari girl whose parents had died. She was learning to navigate both cultures, to be proud of her heritage while embracing her new home. Do you ever think about that day? Jake asked. When you asked to sit on my lap? Sometimes. I was so confused why you reacted that way. I did not understand human customs at all. And now? Now I understand everything. The fear, the attraction, the overwhelming feelings. I understand because I feel them too. My heart still stops sometimes when I look at you. Good. That means the magic has not faded. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching their daughter play in the garden. She was building something with blocks, her face scrunched in concentration. She was perfect. Their life was perfect. Not easy, but perfect in its own complicated way. Jake Morrison, Lyria said softly. Thank you for taking a chance on me, on us. I know it was not easy. It was the easiest decision I ever made. Scary, but easy. Because when you know, you know. Yes. When you know, you know. The sun set over Earth, and somewhere in the galaxy, on a planet with a red sun and purple oceans, the same sun was rising. Two worlds, different but connected. Two species learning to live together. Two people from opposite ends of space who proved that love could bridge any distance. And it all started with a simple question that stopped a heart, but opened a universe of possibilities.